Rolling Loud. Bro, when I go to Rolling Loud, I'm getting off the stage. I'm not performing on stage. I'm jumping off stage, and bro.
Drake is among a list of rappers potentially appearing as witnesses in the trial of South Florida rapper XXXTentacion.
The courtroom drama surrounding the late XXXTentacion's case has taken a shocking, almost surreal turn, catapulting none other than global superstar Drake into the spotlight. What started as an airtight conviction against 3 men for a high-profile robbery has now unraveled into a web of accusations, conspiracy theories, and legal maneuvers that could alter the trajectory of one of the most talked-about cases in modern music history. And if you thought it couldn't get any wilder, think again. Because this isn't just about guilt or innocence. It's about power, influence, and the dark underbelly of an industry where beefs don't always stay on wax.
Yeah, I have a lot of compassion for the things that I do in my life, but as far as just like everything that goes on around me, I feel like I become very pessimistic.
Dedrick Williams, one of the men convicted in the case, has thrown a grenade into the narrative with his appeal brief, pointing fingers in a direction that nobody saw coming. His attorney, Mauricio Padilla, has introduced an angle so audacious that it feels ripped straight out of a thriller. The man they're targeting? Drake. Yes, that Drake, the chart-topping, crowd-pulling, globally adored rap icon who seems untouchable. Until now. What Padilla is suggesting flips the entire case on its head. The possibility that the real story behind XXXTentacion's demise may not be as straightforward as it appeared. And the courtroom is abuzz with this new theory. Here's where things get murky and deeply unsettling. The foundation of this new angle lies in an Instagram post made by XXXTentacion himself months before his life was tragically cut short. In this post, he wrote, "If anyone tries to come for me, it was champagne papy. I'm telling you right now." The message was deleted almost as quickly as it surfaced, with the rapper later claiming his account had been hacked. But the damage was done. Fans and industry insiders alike latched onto the statement, speculating wildly about what it could mean. Was it a joke, a cry for help, or something far darker? For Padilla, this post is more than a fleeting moment of social media drama. It's a potential breadcrumb that leads straight to Drake's doorstep.
Me and XXX was really close, right? XXX is walking around with $50,000 in a duffel bag.
No security.
But let's rewind a bit, because this story isn't just about one social media post. The alleged feud between XXXTentacion and Drake stretches back to 2017, when XXXTentacion burst onto the scene with his viral hit, Look at Me, a gritty, distorted track that epitomized the raw energy of the underground SoundCloud rap movement. Around the same time, Drake released the track KMT as part of his More Life playlist. Fans were quick to point out the striking similarities between the two songs, particularly in the flow and cadence of the verses. What started as internet chatters soon escalated into outright accusations, with XXXTentacion publicly calling out Drake for, in his words, stealing his style. He's a fraud, XXXTentacion declared during an interview, doubling down on his criticism. He's not doing this for the culture. He's doing it for himself.
Drake hit up a DJ that I with. He was like, yo, Drake, watch your interview. He said he with you. He's saying he go call your manager within the next few days.
Drake, for his part, denied the allegations in a radio interview, brushing off the comparisons as coincidental. But the stress didn't fade away. If anything, it only grew more intense. XXXTentacion, never one to back away from confrontation, continued to throw verbal jabs at Drake, both on social media and in interviews. At one point, he ominously joked during an Instagram live session, "Yo, one of these days, someone's gonna catch me slipping." It was the kind of offhand remark that might have been forgotten until it wasn't. Fast forward to Padilla's appeal. The defense attorney is essentially arguing that law enforcement failed to do their due diligence by not investigating this feud further. Padilla has suggested that the authorities were so focused on the robbery angle that they ignored other potential motives. And while he stopped short of outright accusing Drake of orchestrating anything, the implication is clear. The feud was serious enough to warrant a closer look, but it never got one. Padilla has even gone so far as to criticize the police for what he calls a sloppy investigation, claiming that they overlooked key leads that could have pointed to alternate suspects.
You are as guilty as they are, because you were an essential part of that crime. When you went to spend that blood money on sneakers and jerseys, you revealed to the court the value you place on the human life.
But here's where things get even stickier. Padilla's claims aren't just based on XXXTentacion's words, they're also tied to the actions or inactions of others in Drake's orbit. Enter 600 Breezy, a drill rapper with ties to Drake's OVO camp, who openly admitted in a resurfaced video that Drake had given him a subtle nod to confront XXXTentacion. According to Breezy, he once asked Drake if he could handle the situation, to which Drake allegedly shrugged and said it's whatever. Breezy interpreted this as a green light, though he later clarified that no confrontation ever actually took place. Still, his comments have added fuel to the fire, giving Padilla even more material to work with as he builds his case. And then there are the lyrics. Oh, the lyrics. Drake's music has been dissected by fans and critics alike in the wake of these allegations, with some pointing to lines that seem eerily connected to the events surrounding XXXTentacion's demise. Take, for instance, the track I'm Upset, where Drake raps, 50,000 on my head, it's disrespect. Fans immediately drew parallels to the fact that XXXTentacion had withdrawn a similar amount of cash shortly before the incident. Or consider On BS, a track from Drake's 2022 collaboration with 21 Savage, where he spits, if he held his tongue on that live, he'd be alive again. The line, though cryptic, has been interpreted by some as a veiled reference to XXXTentacion's outspoken and often controversial social media presence.
Sentence on the grounds that he did not receive a fair trial. And this is in part due to what his attorneys say is the exclusion of evidence that pointed the finger or maybe pointed the finger at other people. And one of those people whose name has come up is rapper Drake.
Drake's legal team has dismissed these claims as baseless, calling them a desperate attempt to deflect attention from the overwhelming evidence against Williams and his co-defendants. In a statement, Drake's lawyers argued that there is no credible evidence linking the rapper to the case and that the subpoena to depose him was both unreasonable and oppressive. The court ultimately sided with Drake, ruling that he would not be required to testify. But for Padilla, the fight is far from over. The appeal brief is his latest attempt to keep the theory alive, and it's already generating headlines. So what's really going on here? Is this a genuine quest for justice or a calculated move to create reasonable doubt? Is Drake an innocent bystander caught in the whirlwind of internet conspiracies? Or is there something more to this story that's yet to come to light? One thing is certain, the stakes couldn't be higher. For Dedrick Williams, this appeal is a last-ditch effort to avoid spending the rest of his life behind bars. For Drake, it's a battle to protect his reputation and potentially his empire. And for the rest of us, it's a front-row seat to a legal drama that's as messy as it is mesmerizing.
In fact, surveillance footage from the scene actually captures this shocking moment as two masked gunmen, later identified as Boatwright and Newsom, emerged from the vehicle, confronted the rapper at his driver's side window. There is a brief but very violent exchange with one of the men shooting.
But just when you think you've wrapped your head around this tangled web, there's another layer waiting to be uncovered, because the feud between XXXTentacion and Drake wasn't just a two-man show, it was part of a larger tapestry of rivalries, alliances, and betrayals that defined XXXTentacion's tumultuous rise to fame. And as the story unfolds, it's becoming increasingly clear that this case is about much more than just one feud. It's about the very fabric of an industry that thrives on conflict. And here's where the waters get even murkier, because this tangled web of accusations and implications doesn't stop at Drake. No, this story is far from being a simple rap feud turned courtroom sideshow. As the defense continues to hammer its case, they're pulling threads that connect not just to Drake, but to a host of other figures who've loomed large in the late rapper's career and controversies. It's a domino effect, and the pieces are falling fast. What's starting to emerge isn't just the picture of a feud, it's the anatomy of a storm that's been brewing for years, one that involves rivalries, betrayals, and a music industry that thrives on chaos.
So many errors that it takes a while to even break it down. One of the main errors in my opinion in the case, which I had to sit through, argue, and live it, was the fact that in December of 2020, I filed a witness list. The state's reaction to that was to file a motion saying, we want the court to strike all of his witnesses.
Let's talk about the other players in this game, because Drake wasn't the only artist to cross paths with XXXTentacion in ways that turned ugly. Enter 600 Breezy, a name that's been whispered and shouted in equal measure as this legal circus unfolds. A figure notoriously tied to Drake's camp, Breezy's involvement in all of this raises eyebrows for one glaring reason. his own admission that he had his eyes on XXXTentacion after their spat escalated. His so-called permission from Drake may or may not have been a shrug, but what's clear is that Breezy took his grievances seriously enough to make them public. And now, with his name popping up in courtrooms and legal filings, it's hard not to wonder, was he just another pawn in a larger game, or was he playing his own? But Breezy wasn't the only one who had beef with XXXTentacion. The late rapper's ability to spark conflict was like gasoline meeting a match. Take his infamous clash with the Migos, the Atlanta trio whose meteoric rise in the industry coincided with XXXTentacion's own rapid ascent. What started as online barbs quickly turned physical, with XXXTentacion claiming he'd been ambushed by the group in Los Angeles. It was messy to say the least. Allegations flew, denials followed, and in the end, no one could quite pin down what had actually happened. But what the incident made undeniably clear was that XXXTentacion's enemies weren't just local, they were everywhere. He wasn't just fighting other rappers, he was fighting an entire system that seemed determined to keep him in its sights.
In the brief and in what I was arguing in court is the latter. We are, a defendant has every right to defend himself and to show reasonable doubt wherever it may be, and to fully investigate and articulate to a jury an alternate shooter defense or an alternate, a defense where someone else, committed this crime.
And it wasn't just the Migos. Another name that keeps resurfacing, though rarely with the same volume, is Rob Stone. Their feud, while less notorious than the Drake and Migos drama, was no less volatile. Rob Stone, a rapper from San Diego, had his own issues with XXXTentacion after a series of heated exchanges that eventually spilled into violence. One infamous night during a performance in San Diego, XXXTentacion was blindsided while on stage, sucker punched so brutally that the footage from the incident made rounds on social media for weeks. The chaos didn't end there. Audience members brawled with security, and someone in the crowd was even injured. While Rob Stone denied any involvement in orchestrating the attack, fans weren't so quick to let him off the hook. The incident became another chapter in XXXTentacion's history of attracting trouble wherever he went. But what makes this particular feud so fascinating is how close it came to derailing XXXTentacion's career entirely. After the San Diego incident, rumors swirled that venues and promoters were hesitant to book him, fearing the chaos and liability that seemed to follow him. Some even speculated that this was exactly what his rivals wanted, to isolate him, to make him an untouchable figure in the industry. For someone like XXXTentacion, who thrived on his connection to fans and his live performances, this kind of isolation was a dangerous weapon. And yet he persisted, doubling down on his confrontational persona in a way that only added fuel to the fire.
Real quick about why you think the judge did this, because in the appellate brief, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is an accusation that the court might have been biased because of Drake's celebrity status. Correct me if that allegation is wrong, and in your opinion, why do you believe the court ultimately wouldn't allow the deposition of Drake?
Even years after the fact, the fingerprints of these feuds linger in the public's imagination. The narrative of XXXTentacion being a magnet for conflict has often been used to justify or dismiss the more sinister theories surrounding his fate. It's as if his life was a storm that everyone wanted to take credit for causing. And now, with Dedrick, Williams' appeal dragging all of this back into the spotlight, those old rivalries are being re-examined with fresh scrutiny. Was Rob Stone just another chapter in a chaotic story? Or was he, like Drake, like Breezy, another piece of a puzzle that nobody's managed to solve yet? And then there's the family. Oh, the family. If you thought the courtroom drama stopped at Williams' appeal, think again. XXXTentacion's inner circle has been embroiled in its own legal battles, and the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. At the center of it all is Cleopatra Bernard, the rapper's mother, whose role as the executor of his estate has made her both a lightning rod for criticism and a key figure in preserving his legacy. But that legacy is anything but harmonious. Bernard has been locked in a bitter dispute with other members of XXXTentacion's family, including his half-sister, Ariana, and his half-brother, Corey Pack. The accusations? They range from defamation to financial mismanagement, painting a picture of a family divided not just by grief, but by greed and mistrust.
Made various reversible errors, and I think from the beginning he made a lot of calls that were unconstitutional, not legal, this being one of them. I don't want to speculate as to why, but when you're dealing with someone like Drake, which he's not a celebrity, he's a super celebrity. He's like in the stratosphere of fame. So when a judge does a 180 like that, I'll let the viewers or.
Let's not forget the estate itself, which has been estimated to be worth tens of millions. A fortune like that doesn't just attract attention, it breeds conflict. Corey Pax claims that Bernard has been siphoning money away from the estate have added yet another layer of drama to an already convoluted saga. And then there's the matter of XXXTentacion's record label, Bad Vibes Forever, which Pac alleges he has a rightful stake in. Bernard, of course, denies these allegations, but with lawsuits flying in every direction, it's hard to tell where the truth ends and the speculation begins. And just when you think it couldn't get any messier, there's the matter of XXXTentacion's son, Yume. Born months after his father's passing, the child has become both a symbol of hope and a point of contention. Genesis Sanchez, the mother of Yume, found herself in a legal showdown with Bernard over something as basic and as charged as a DNA test. Sanchez wanted to prove definitively that XXXTentacion was the father, ensuring her son's place in the rapper's legacy. Bernard, for reasons that remain unclear, opposed the move. It's a fight that feels emblematic of the larger battles surrounding XXXTentacion's life and demise. Deeply personal, unrelentingly public, and fueled by motives that no one can fully untangle.
Questions. And I really wasn't able to properly defend my client. Mr. Williams did not get a fair trial. When I read this, I think there's like some kind of a defense mechanism when you try a case for 11 weeks that you start forgetting things. When I read this, it brought it all back, and it reminded me of really how unfair the judge was with Mr. Williams and the detrimental effects that it had for me.
While the family tears itself apart in courtrooms and depositions, the broader implications of Williams' appeal loom large. The defense's insistence that the investigation was incomplete opens the door to questions that go beyond Drake, beyond 600 Breezy, beyond even the Migos. What if there was more to this case than anyone realized? What if the forces at play weren't just personal but systemic? After all, the music industry has a long history of turning conflicts into profit. Rivalries sell records, scandals generate streams, and controversy keeps the machine running. Could it be that XXXTentacion's story is just another chapter in this never-ending cycle? And let's not forget the lyrics. Drake isn't the only artist whose words have been scrutinized in the wake of XXXTentacion's passing. Across the industry, there's been a tendency to weave references to the late rapper into songs, whether as tributes, disses, or something more cryptic. It's a phenomenon that speaks to the lasting impact of XXXTentacion's legacy, but also raises uncomfortable questions about the line between homage and exploitation. Are these artists paying their respects, or are they capitalizing on a tragedy that still feels raw to so many?
Bro, I'm amped up. Nigga, I fuck with Drake.
Yeah.
You feel me? Drake a genius. He was supposed to contact one of my managers, so he doesn't do it. That same
As the courtroom battles rage on, one thing is clear. This story is far from over. The appeal has cracked open a Pandora's box of questions, and it's anyone's guess where the answers might lead. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about one case or one rapper. It's about the culture of an industry that thrives on drama, the personal cost of fame, and the lengths people will go to protect their interests. And with every new revelation, every new claim, the stakes get higher. Who stands to gain? Who has something to lose? And how far will they go to tip the scales in their favor? So there you have it, another layer peeled back. Another set of questions to wrestle with. Is this just the defense grasping at straws, or is there something deeper at play? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned because this is far from the end.